Hello, scrufftards, degenerates, and basement dwellers. Welcome to the War Zone. I'm Scruffy, and this is Scruffy Tales. And we're gonna take a look at Tetkino Pokrovsk and the Toretsk Thunder Blitz. At Tetkino, we have updates that Ukraine keeps pushing. At Pokrovsk, we can see how Russia keeps advancing, trying to push into Pokrovsk, as it were. And at Toretsk, a Ukrainian thunder blitz straight into the heart of the city appears to have had partial success with infantry fortifying certain buildings. Let's get into it. ISW reports fighting continued in Kursk Oblast on May 12th. This is important. Alleged ceasefire violations. There are no active ceasefires in Ukraine, right? So no one's broken any ceasefires. Anyway, so fighting continued in Kursk Oblast on May 12th. Yesterday, today is the 13th. Russian forces conducted ground attacks in unspecified areas. However, Russian mill bloggers claim that Ukrainian forces attacked near Tetkino and Novye Put on May 12th. And also that Ukraine conducted an attack near Popovka in Belgorod. Here, this is Demidovka, where Russia pushed in and took control, and then Ukraine is still in some control over the area surrounding Popovka. Anyway, we're gonna move over to Tetkino. And we're using Mayakovsk 73's map, updated an hour ago. The other mappers haven't really updated yet, so we may see changes on the maps as the day progresses. But if we zoom in, well, what are we talking about here according to the ISW? Not many changes on the map here by Mayakovsk 73, but according to ISW, this is where we saw a lot of attacks made by Ukraine yesterday, trying to push Russians further back. We can see Russia losing vehicles in this area. We have confirmed Ukraine is operating over here, as well as in the middle of town. And Novye Put, where is that? That is here. We know Ukraine has tried to breach in these locations around this small village or farm, and been crossing with the various vehicles. And this is, of course, to draw resources and assets and manpower away from Tetkino, forcing Russia to fight over here instead and not focus everything on Tetkino. So Ukraine is still conducting assaults, according to ISW and Russian mill bloggers, in this area as a distraction, drawing Russians away from the main fighting over at Tetkino. Jumping down to Pokrovsk, according to all sources, this was the main hotspot in the past 24-48 hours, with 70 assaults conducted by Russia. In the last 24 hours, 48 hours, Russia conducted 150 assaults, 70 of those in the Pokrovsk area, so this is where most of the action is taking place. That said, though, not much yet. We may see updates later today, but not much in the form of updates. We have this push by Russia conducted earlier. You can see they have begun a push into the suburbs, the outskirts of Pokrovsk, trying to come in this way. That should tell us that Russia is probably comfortably in control of Peshane, or at least maybe they're trying to bypass Peshane and come in behind it to isolate it so that they can then secure Peshane. Could be it. But clearly we are seeing Russia moving into the outskirts of Pokrovsk. There has an assault on the city has begun, and it has been ongoing for a couple of days by this point. It appears as if Russia is in control of Shevchenko again. They pushed Ukraine back from these windbreaks, and they more than likely have pushed Ukraine back from the railroad here. And that means Russia secures road networks between Selene, Vodorozhenia, and Shevchenko. And it also secures logistics across the river here into the Vovkove area that supports the push at Sverove here, and also supports Russian attempts in pushing up to Kotline. We can see here Russia is continuing pushing out of Uzbenivka, a big push. This was on the 11th yesterday, or the other day, sorry, through Novoalexandrivka, trying to push through to expand territory westward. You can see they have secured the town of, I can't really see what it's called. They did this a couple of days ago. Interestingly, down here, I've been talking about Tyr, a town that has been hammered for a month by Russian artillery. They have now pushed in. This happened a couple of days back. Yeah, this is on the 9th, the 10th, and then you have a Russian attack on the 11th. So they have pushed in. I thought the main assault would come up here. It came through here, this corner. But they are in town, having shelled this town with a frenzy for the past month, now pushing in. My hope was that Ukraine would be able to hold for a bit longer, but it appears as if the Russian assault has been decisive and they have now established a foothold. Russia, of course, wants to push out to the Solona River over here to secure this highway here that they've pushed past now. This supply line here that leads all the way back to Donetsk. And now they want to push out, to push Ukraine away from the supply line and also provide territory for Russian artillery to spread out south of Pokrovsk, so you can attack all support stations, supply depots, and all supply lines leading into Pokrovsk. So Russia is close to being able to launch an assault properly towards Pokrovsk, and it will more than likely come through here at Sverove by the looks of it. Over to the east of Myrnrad and Pokrovsk, we can see Russia has had some minor gains. They made this big impressive motorcycle assault, but since then not much has happened. They made a push in the center towards Novopoltavka. That hasn't resulted in all that much. They gained access with a couple of vehicles, but the town is quite clearly still in Ukrainian control, despite Russia pushing up on the flanks here and up on flanks here. People are talking about that this is a threat to Konstantinivka. I'm not so sure. Konstantinivka can always be supplied from the north. I think this push here is aimed at Shakove and Toretsk. Because if we zoom in, you can see here comes a highway, leads down to Shakove, and from Shakove, roads then fan out to provide supply lines into Myrnorad and Pokrovsk. So I think this push here, the aim is Shakove in the end, and the surrounding towns to cut supplies leading to Myrnorad and Pokrovsk. So you're coming up here to the west of Pokrovsk to cut supply lines, to the east to cut supply lines, and then Pokrovsk and Myrnorad only has one supply line left. That makes these two cities very vulnerable to an eventual assault. And last but least, let's head on over to Toretsk. Still not that much in the way of updates. On the maps at least, and we know Ukraine pushed in. You can see it here, you can follow it here. This push then made it all the way into the center of town. The goal is to secure these high-rise buildings here in this square. This gives Ukraine elevated positions, and they can spot Russian movements all over town that will allow them to direct artillery, direct drone strikes. They can set up snipers. Machine gunners can cover the large, wide streets in the area, making it difficult for Russia to operate surrounding the square. That means Russia must attack the square and clear out all the Ukrainians. And since all the Russian efforts are focused here, I'm thinking that will open up for Ukraine to apply pressure elsewhere, such as this part of town that is basically isolated. I've also noticed a couple of other things where we have Ukrainians more than likely confirmed in this area, so we're going to take a look at that as well. Now, this push into the center of town, it's not mentioned anywhere in any of the updates. When you read about Toretsk, the reports talk about Russian advances or smaller assaults in various positions or places. I mean, I think there's talk of 6 Russian attacks in Toretsk. Meanwhile, we have this big Ukrainian push visually confirmed and released onto social media. So quite clearly we have, for a couple of days now, Ukraine pushing through here during the weekend, reaching the center of town. And now we have geolocated, as of yesterday, a bunch of Ukrainian positions in the center of town here. And some of those are quite interesting. We have Russian artillery strikes up here. We have Ukrainian vehicles down here. And here we have Russians open fire from this building across the street into this building yesterday. So let's take a look at that. Right, so here you have the geolocated Ukrainians in this corner that we were talking about. And here you have evidence that they are present as of yesterday. A Russian rifle here firing across the street at the ruins, geolocated to being Russian position here, firing across this way at Ukrainian positions in the ruins of this building. And as you can see, this is the Russian position firing across at the Ukrainians, and this corner here is quite obviously this corner where you have all of this activity with blue dots and red dots. So quite clearly, yesterday, Russians in this building were firing at Ukrainians in this building. So Ukraine has established a presence in these buildings. They're up in these buildings, and we know Ukrainians are moving along this street and are trying to secure positions in this part of town here as well. So that means Ukraine came down this street here in force, reached this part of town here, and started deploying troops into the surrounding buildings, pushed up this street and came down here with some vehicles, and they also dropped off troops along the street. We have geolocated evidence of that as well. And that means, let's see here, that we have Ukraine in this building. That is the building that the Russians were firing at. That means we have Russians in this building firing at Ukrainians here. And we also know that Ukraine is up in these buildings. This is where Russia is directing a lot of artillery. And we have along this street here, we've seen Ukrainians moving on foot up in this area here. And we also have a lot of Ukrainian activity down here. And we know that after reaching the intersection, Ukrainian vehicles, I should say, pushed in here as well. So this is what we know at the moment, that we have Ukrainians here guaranteed. We know we have Ukrainians here guaranteed. This is an area where Ukraine pushed in, and we have seen sporadic evidence of Ukrainians on the move along the street. So I'm guessing that Ukraine kind of wants this compound here as well. It's a large compound with still standing buildings that provides cover, and where you can house troops and equipment relatively safely from attack from above. And you also easily defended if Russians are trying to push in. So this is basically what we know at the moment, where we have confirmed Ukrainians up here, more than likely here, and possibly in this part of town as well, with Russians guaranteed here firing at these Ukrainians. And we have a bunch of high-rise buildings here, where we more than likely have Russian troops as well, trying to defend these tall structures, or the skeletons of these tall structures. So what is the point of all of this? Well, if you watch pro-Russian sources, the narrative is that this was a complete failure and that all Ukrainians were destroyed on day one, on the 8th or 9th of May. They moved in and got wiped out. But we do have now evidence that the Ukrainians are still here in the center of town. And you might then wonder why. What's the purpose of this? So I'm going to repeat this. I've mentioned this in my previous videos, but there are always Vatniks popping up and going, oh, this is crazy. Why would they do this? They're wasting lives. So I'm going to repeat myself. And if I have some new viewers, you might catch on to things as well. So where do we have Ukrainians? We have Ukrainians here. We have Ukrainians here, and we have Ukrainians here, and we also have Ukrainians here geolocated, where Russia has moved in drones to strike at this location. So Ukraine came thundering down this road and then followed the street into this corner, and we know they deployed troops into this part of town in here, and up here. And we also know that we have seen Ukrainians moving in this area along this street here. Here you have several still standing high-rise buildings, and from these buildings, if Ukraine can grab and manage to push out and secure this square, as it were, if they manage to do that, that gives them an excellent line of sight all across town, especially down here. This is this here is low ground compared to up here. This is on higher elevation. Unsure just how steep that difference is, but these buildings are higher up than these buildings, and they are also high-rise buildings, so you have excellent lines of sight. Most of these buildings are destroyed and flat. Gives Ukraine lines of sight all over the place, and from here you can direct drones and artillery at Russians moving. You're gonna spot them moving. So as you can imagine, if you can effectively guide artillery and drones into this area, it becomes really difficult for Russia to move through, as they're being hammered by accurate artillery and drones. Also, should Ukraine be able to push out this way, as I suspect they intend to do, that gives Ukraine line of sight down here with marksmen, snipers, and machine gunners, as Russia is trying to push across the open field located here. As you can see, this is an area where you have very few buildings, and that makes it difficult for Russia to advance as well. By taking these various locations where we are seeing the Ukrainians, they also have line of sight along the streets here, along the street here, and obviously along this avenue here and this avenue. So as you can see, the Ukrainians, they can open fire and control much of the center of town if here's the big if they can secure these high-rise buildings and this square, and if they can push out into this compound here. All of this makes it difficult for Russia to move up this way, like we said, or even move down here, because they're going to be spotted and attacked more than likely. And since Ukraine is also in control of these buildings at the moment, at least, and that may change obviously, it makes it difficult for Russia to come up this way. And all of this combined tells me that Ukraine is trying to isolate this part of town, right? I'm repeating myself. I'm so sorry, but I'm explaining to new viewers and the occasional Vatnik that will question what Ukraine is up to. Also, Russia can't readily move through here to support this part of town either, because you have Ukrainians here all over the place in the center of town, and they are controlling key locations at the moment. That will make it difficult for Russia to move through with enough troops and manpower and resources needed to properly support this part of town. So why is Ukraine doing all this? I'm thinking Ukraine pushed in to establish and control positions to cordon off this part of town, draw attention, and essentially hold until relieved. And when will they be relieved? When Ukraine has probably pushed in here into this part of town and moved through to reach the forward position. I'm thinking that this is the main objective of this push. Will it work? No guarantees. Obviously, Russia will focus a lot of manpower and assets, artillery, drones to counter the Ukrainian presence in the center of town. But the only reason to push into center of town and take control of these buildings, being as isolated as these Ukrainians will be, is if a secondary push will try and come in and secure territory behind them and reach them and support them. Which suggests to me that Ukraine will try and grab this part of town right here, and from here continue to push in and support this forward element. Well, there you have it. An idiot online on YouTube drawing arrows on a map, not knowing what the hell he's talking about, but talking about it anyway. Kind of like 95% of all people updating you on Ukraine, right? People who know jack shit, fuck all, what they're talking about, and they start drawing arrows on a map. So here we are. I'm doing it as well. If they can, so can I. Anyway, I hope you found it interesting and that I'll see you in the next one. As always, go på marsch, Ukraine, and give them hell.